We've passed on all we know. 1,000 generations live in you now.
And we're going to do everything we can to get us back on track and get us winning football games and getting back and competing for world championships.
It is your destiny.
The Knights of Den podcast with Sayre Bedinger and Brandon Keckler.
What is up, Broncos country? Welcome back. Welcome if it's your first time as well to the Knights of Den podcast. I am Sayre Bedinger, here as always with Brandon Keckler. Brandon, it's so great, even after a loss, to be here talking some Broncos football with you, man.
It is. Yeah. Would have loved to be recapping a awesome come from behind victory, which we'll get into the alternate timeline of that world later. But it's still great to be here with you, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to be talking a little bit about the game, a little bit about our awards, and what the Broncos can do to kind of rebound from here, and what it might have been like Brandon just said, in an alternate universe, had they maybe even won the game. So we got a lot of great stuff lined up on the show today. I'm excited. As always, we're going to be tying in some of our love for Star Wars, pop culture, things like that. But, man, this was a brutal loss. I mean, I just sat there and kind of blankly stared at my computer screen as the kick from Eddie Pinheiro went through. I can't even remember. I was trying to think back to the moment just the other day or yesterday. I was trying to think back to the moment, and I'm like, I don't even remember the whole ordeal when Allen Robinson went down and he was touchdown and the clock was at 0, but it really was at 1. And I was trying to think through my thoughts at that moment, right when it was still 14-13 and the Bears were kind of fighting to get more time put back on the clock. I couldn't remember anything the announcers in the game said. Couldn't remember anything the referee explained, and I haven't rewatched that part of the game because it's still a little bit too fresh of a wound. But man, this was as tough a loss as I think I can remember for the Broncos in the last 5 years.
I had a very vivid memory of exactly where I was when that specific moment happened. I was at work, and I was actually watching the game with a Chiefs fan, with a female friend of mine, and she was actually rooting for the Broncos. One of her ex-boyfriends is a Bears fan, so we got a little, she was more emotionally invested in the Bears losing.
Right.
But it was really funny, so she's going for it, and I'm watching on my iPad because it wasn't on local. I'm here in Boise, Idaho. But oh my gosh, man! Right about when the Allen Robinson catch happened, either right before or right when he caught it, my drop-down notification says final score 16-14 or whatever. You just no, and I'm like, I just buried my head in my hands, and it was like I was just coming off being upset about the Chubb penalty. I was really upset about that, and then it went straight into the Allen Robinson catch, and I'm just like, don't blow this. It drops down. They blew it right before, and then I had to watch the field goal, knowing what was going to happen.
Oh my gosh,
it was rough.
And that's the tough part, is that I think this gets into, we could probably even do an entire podcast just on this topic alone, but I've seen a lot of people on Twitter, it's either you're justifying the loss based on the poor officiating, or other people are saying, well, why don't you just play better the rest of the 59 minutes and 30 seconds, and you won't have to worry about the officiating. I get both sides of that argument, but I'm interested to know where you fall on that, because I watch a lot of baseball, and I don't mean to kind of block out anyone who doesn't watch a lot of baseball, but in baseball, if you are scrapping and clawing and trying to score runs throughout a game, and you get to within a run, or you're even down a couple runs throughout the entire game, and then in the bottom of the 9th inning you're about to take a lead, or you take a lead, and then the other team gets a bad strike call in their favor, to me, the timing of that significantly alters the game way more than any other penalty throughout the game. So I'm interested to know your perspective on that, because I have some really passionate thoughts about it, but I want to hear what you think, because I think it's the most important factor in this game, is the way the officials kind of handled things.
So I'm as a storyteller, I'm very much like a third act kind of guy, as far as you're taking the characters in the first couple acts through these like a lot of conflict. Mm-hmm. And one of my favorite parts of most movies is what I personally call the Helm's Deep moment, where Helm's Deep is breached. Yes. And, we're screwed. We're now here in this last and final room, and I guess all we have left to do is ride out and and battle on horseback and just go down like savages. And then you press through, and then you see Gandalf and the Riders of Rohan coming over the horizon. And it's the most glorious moment because you're saved from certain defeat. And I love when movies can convince you that there's no hope. So just in the nature of storytelling, I'm never really care too much about, or I weigh the importance of the earlier parts of the game as lesser if you can come and take the victory back at the end. And there's a lot of strategy to that. There's a lot of grinding down of the defenses. There's a lot of strategy that can be had where you play a certain way just to be able to close out strong and get the W in the end. I know some teams more than others kind of invoke those strategies. So for me, I kind of get both camps of the argument, like you were saying, where we may have not even needed to have been in that situation and relying on a couple calls from the refs in the end. We definitely could have played better earlier on, but I definitely feel like we were like robbed of a really cool like storybook finish, where all of the pieces of the narrative, if someone was scripting this game, were lining up perfectly in our favor to be like an awesome final act.
Yep.
Only to like. It was almost more of like a TV season finale where it seemed like it was going to end really well, and then at the very last scene the carpet gets stripped out, and now you're like, oh no, what's going to happen next episode at the premiere of next season? It didn't feel like the ending of a satisfying movie. It felt like it just like set you up with this happy ending and then just stripped it away from you. So I feel like we both could have played better, and I feel like we were robbed.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that I don't think you have to necessarily fall on either side of that line. There's a balance between, okay, I could look at the game this way. The Bears allowed 10 points to Aaron Rodgers week 1. Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers is a better quarterback than, Joe Flacco, and the Packers probably have a better team overall than the Broncos, although they're going to lose to the Broncos this week. Just mark those words down. But at the same time, Green Bay in Chicago only scored 10 points. And so I see all these people saying, well, you should score more than 14 points if you want to win the game. Well, the Bears held their opponents to 14 points or less in 7 of their games last season, including...
And one of the best stats, just to support your statement right here, is we got 27 first downs against the Bears.
Right. Yep.
It's a good freaking defense.
Yes.
We didn't close, and that's definitely the one thing I will say the most about what we didn't do as well as we should have done through the game. Yes. Next to making some bigger plays on defense, it's just closing in the red zone because we still moved the ball really well against a premier defense.
Yes, I 100% agree with that, and that's the number one reason why I don't get the Joe Flacco hate right now, is because I think Joe Flacco's doing a pretty darn good job, especially considering the amount of pressure that he's facing. I mean, the way that the offensive line, especially on Garrett Bowles' side, was blocking in this game was kind of pathetic, and I think Joe Flacco did a really good job getting the ball out fast, identifying pre-snap coverage, finding those receivers out there and making plays. There's a couple plays that he missed. There's a couple plays that everyone on the offense missed, but look back to that final drive for the offense, man. I mean, if we're talking about the Broncos, I want to wait for that till later. But, I mean, look at some of the plays that he made on that final drive to Cortland Sutton on 4th down. The 2 4th down catches, the touchdown to Emmanuel Sanders was just unbelievable play by both quarterback and receiver. And the 2-point conversion, a very well drawn-up play. And so
Flacco, Sutton, Lindsey, Freeman, Sanders were all doing well late in the game.
Yep.
All of their fourth quarters were all really good.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's again, like, I would like it to be a full 4-quarter situation, but when my boys show up to play in the fourth quarter, like that's when my passion just gets set on fire.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. And we've seen so many Broncos games, including in that Super Bowl season, where they didn't necessarily even have to play great for 3 quarters. They were able to close out games in the fourth quarter, make enough plays to win. I don't really care, if you play a complete game every single game of the season. Like, you're going to have to win some ugly ones. And I feel like, in my opinion, the officials more cost the Broncos this game than their poor play did, just because of the simple fact that if you say to me on any given week, the Denver Broncos are going to have a lead with 30 seconds left in the game, I'm going to take that 100% of the time. I'm going to say, okay, I'll take that situation. Because you know what? We got the best closers in the game. And that's a situation where the officials, you call that 15-yard penalty on Chubb, and then you fail to really address the clock situation in an appropriate way. Have you ever seen anything like that? I mean, I was writing about this in an article on predominantlyorange.com, but like any field goal in a game that I've seen that happens at the end of a half, whether it's the first half or the second half, there's always an extra second, and even sometimes 2 that fall off the clock after the kick goes through the uprights on my TV screen. And to see Allen Robinson go down, dude, like that, he went down and he was touched down with 1 second left. That 1 second comes off the clock.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
I've never seen anything like that.
Yeah. And I'll get in a little bit more to my thoughts on that in a minute when we divvy out the game awards.
Yeah.
But no. And it feels good seeing it from Fangio too, that he's just like, he was really displeased with that too. I felt robbed.
Yeah, Fangio addressed the league about it. I mean, he called up the league. He even had a pre-written Sean Payton quote from last year's Saints-Rams playoff game. He came out in the press conference, and I don't even know if he was asked anything. He might have been asked the question about, what did he think about the officiating. He had it written down on a sheet of paper, and he just read it verbatim. So he was ready to call that out. And then, he did that a number of times. And so he said he didn't think the roughing the passer was called as written in the rule books. He didn't like the situation with the clock at the end, said that nothing ever happens in life simultaneously, which I just love the way he does that.
He's so good in his press conferences.
Yeah.
Like, I find myself so entertained just watching him like answer even like kind of like seemingly trivial questions.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
But
yeah, he's hilarious, man. So I personally, I felt like the officiating really did screw the Broncos in this one. I'm one to blame the officiating. Like if you're just looking for a reason, you can find one. But at the same time, like I can also be real and say, well, they missed way too many plays throughout the game to justify.
Well, some are more, some are more arguable cases where you could kind of see what they were saying. This is my buddy was actually who's a Lions fan. Obviously he hates the Bears, so he is emotionally invested in that call being called the other way. But he was saying some of them you can kind of see what they're saying. Yeah. But with this, it was just that was clearly not pass interference,
right?
Or roughing the passer.
Yeah, roughing the passer. Yep. So the officials not good. The Denver Broncos are now 0-2, but we still got awards to give out, man. We've still got awards to give out. So the chosen one every single week. For those of you who are joining the show for the first time, again, I want to just thank you. Brandon and I want to thank you for that. But every single week on this show, we're going to do a segment where we choose awards that are Star Wars themed, and every single week we're going to get a chosen one award. And obviously,
which is the game MVP.
Yeah, the game MVP. So I'm going to defer to you for the first selection here for the chosen one. I've got mine picked, but I'm interested to hear who you have to say.
I'm going with last week's mall winner in Emmanuel Sanders.
Yes. Dang it.
That was yours too.
That was mine too.
Shouldn't have deferred to me, man. Yeah, you know what? And so just also so people know, we never tell each other what we're gonna choose for our awards because we just think it's more fun to like debut that live on the podcast with you guys hearing it for the first time as well. So we didn't sync up. I don't even know what his 2 awards are that he's gonna choose for his elective awards. But yeah, Emmanuel Sanders. Showed out again 2 weeks in a row. So last week he comes back from the injury and has a great week 1. And this one, dude, just between the toe tap for the touchdown and then the 2-point conversion, it wasn't just those plays. There's a lot of other big plays too. No one had as much of an impact upon the Broncos' performance. And last week I did give the game MVP to the winning team.
Yeah.
But this week, I feel more like we're the winning team,
right? And
I'm in defiance of that outcome, so I'm giving it to Emmanuel Sanders.
Yeah, that was my pick 100% of the way. But because you picked him, I'm gonna punt here and ironically pick a kicker for this game, and I'm gonna do what you did last week. I'm gonna pick from the other team, and I'm gonna take Chicago Bears kicker Eddie De Niro is what they were calling him on Good Morning Football, which is what I thought was pretty funny. Just money. He was money in this game, and the Bears obviously struggling last year with their kicker position, and they lost that playoff game against the Rams because of the kicker, and essentially that's what brought, or was that the Eagles? It was the Eagles.
Yeah.
And that essentially brought Vic Fangio to Denver, and then ironically he loses to his former team because a kicker is just lights out. I mean, 250-plus yard kicks, man. I figured at least one of those was going to sail. You know, I felt like
he did a good
was going
job.
to happen. So,
and you kind of got to feel happy for, the Bears fans that have suffered through some dark days with some bad kickers.
No doubt.
Kudos to them.
No doubt. All right, we got our other awards for this game. So, back to you, man. Okay. Back to you here.
So the way that we do this is we have a pool of awards. Mm-hmm. We listed them last week, and it's all Star Wars themed. And what we do is we pick 2 out of these to do. Each of us picks 2 and gives them out. So that way we can be kind of changing it up and doing different awards every week. We got the Kenobi, which is solid and consistent. We got the Darth, which is game-breaking, will-crushing. The Ahsoka, surprising performance and riser. The Jar Jar, who's someone that was a bumbler and was kind of inconsistent. The Mandalorian, which is like a defensive assassin. The Palpatine, noticeable coaching achievement. The Han and Chewie, which is a noticeable tag team effort. The Maul, which has come back from the dead, injury or a previously bad week. And then the Rey, which has made it look easy. So each week we're going to choose 2 of those and give our awards. Mm-hmm. So for my first elective, I have a feeling one of ours, again, is going to be the same.
Yeah. I had a feeling as well.
So I'm gonna start with that one, which I think will probably be the same as yours, which I'm giving the Jar Jar to Garrett Wills. Yep.
Had to be done. Let's give him a double Binks.
I wasn't really predicting the Emmanuel Sanders chosen one, but I did for sure think that we were going to both choose Bowles for the Jar Jar. Yeah. How do you not give Bowles the Jar Jar this game?
He needs one.
He's too often Jar Jar.
Yeah, he needs
to stop being Jar Jar.
Yes, exactly. We need him to become Senator Jar Jar.
Even Darth Jar Jar.
Yeah. 100%.
I think that's what we're all kind of hoping for is that he turns into the freaking Sith Lord that was really the secret villain the whole time and just dominates.
That's what I'm talking about.
As of now, he just seems like he's non-Darth Jar Jar. That's just the one that's fumbling through freaking games and making bonehead decisions and costing us huge running drives and huge gameplay, game-changing moments.
Yeah.
So,
Wiped out Phillip Lindsay's best run of the day.
20 yards.
Yep. My first award has got to be a Palpatine, and it's going to Coach Vic Fangio. My first Palpatine of the year going to Fangio because, dude, he showed some serious guts in this game. Going for it on 4th down at near midfield, going for it on 4th down again when he really needed to, and then going for 2 after after the Broncos got a penalty for delay of game, which I can't fathom if you're trying to go for 2 to win the game. How do you get a delay of game penalty? And then the Broncos line up to kick the extra point, and the Bears happen to be offsides, and Brandon McManus missed the extra point, and then Fangio comes back and is like, all right, we're going for it again. Like, he didn't even think about it. I mean, that is just a psychopathic, just killer instinct right there. I love it in the best way. I mean that possible. So
I think that was my favorite. Obviously, we only have 2 games, but that was like so far. That's a major, the most major Fangio highlight is how he handled that 2-point conversion.
Mm-hmm.
Then how he went back and was like, all right, you guys screwed that up. We're kicking it now. And then, okay, now we got another chance, guys. Let's kill it. Like, I love that whole flow of moments.
Yes.
Like, it felt exhilarating in this really cool, like, up and down mode. So I was thinking about that, and I'm glad I didn't now. But that was, if I was to give out a third award, it would have been a Palpatine to Fangio. Yeah. But I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna do something a little unpredictable.
All right, hit me.
I'm gonna give a Mandalorian to the refs.
Ooh.
Because I think that the refs were like paid mercenaries. You know, my conspiracy side's coming out. Bears got some more primetime games. Dude, I think that these are a couple bounty hunter mercenaries, these refs, and I think they sabotaged us with some freaking contracts and and ruined our chances of winning. Yeah. So I'm gonna give the bounty hunter Mandalorian awards to the refs for this game.
I was also planning on giving out a bounty hunter award in this game, and I think this guy really deserves it. He's had such a great offseason. Justin Simmons getting this week's bounty hunter award from me. There in the fourth quarter there, and he made plays all throughout the game, but in the fourth quarter there, I distinctly remember 2 drives by the Chicago Bears where Justin Simmons got the ball back to his offense in less than 2 minutes time. He was flying all over the field, making tackles. There was a pass late in the game, 3 minutes, 45 seconds left. I'm looking at the game notes right now. 3 minutes, 45 seconds left, 3rd and 8 at the Chicago 25. The Broncos need the ball back stat to even get in position to score a touchdown. And Justin Simmons came up and made an open field tackle on Allen Robinson, who killed it the rest of the game for the Bears to get the ball back to the offense. And man, he was all over the field. It was the guy that we expected him to be. So kudos to Justin Simmons, my defensive assassin for this game, man. He looks awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Let's talk about the
how are we gonna get better? I mean,
how are we gonna get better, man?
Goodness
how are we
gonna
improve? Where do we go from here?
Goodness sakes.
What is the future looking like, both in the incoming future and in the distant future? Like, how do we calibrate, where we are as a team, with what we've got to become this year and maybe what we need to be looking forward to? Like, how do Bronco fans tune in to where we're at and stay optimistic with where we're going?
Yeah. Well, I tweeted out the other day that the Broncos started 2-0 last year and went 6-10. So obviously, starting 0-2, the only expectation we could possibly have is that they're going to finish 10-6 this year. So that's just, I mean, I just don't see how we can't. That's just a perfect balance right there. No. But in all seriousness, man, I think it really starts with the pass rush getting home a little bit more. And I realize that the Broncos are facing just a constant barrage of rapid-fire passes. I think the Baltimore Ravens had the fastest sack in the NFL this past week, and I believe it was 2.54 seconds. And I think quarterbacks are getting the ball out on average against the Broncos under 2.2. So it's like they would have to get there way faster than the fastest sack in the NFL this week just to even get home one time. Quarterbacks aren't taking deep drops. They're not sitting back there waiting for coverage to open up. They're just taking these old dink and dunk plays, and it's really kept the Broncos' greatest asset off the table in games, and I absolutely hate it. It's the most frustrating thing based on what we've seen them do in the past, right? I mean, this team has been so good rushing the passer that it's infuriating to see the best pass rush duo they've had not be able to get there. So
Yeah.
that for me is where it starts. Right.
Not only just the two pass rushers, no one's getting in there. But that, by the way, that was a really cool stat. I hadn't heard that yet. And it's to put that into perspective of like the fastest sack this week happened in this amount of time.
Yeah.
And on average, they're getting the ball out in less than that amount of time. That's a good digestible thing to hold on to or to get a grasp of, to try to put this in perspective of like, why aren't they getting the sacks?
Mm-hmm.
But that's tough. So, I mean, what do you know football more than me. So what do we do for that? I mean, are we just totally lacking the personnel up close and short to be able to stop those quick passes from happening? Like, how do you redeem that?
I think that, honestly, one thing that's going to really help is if we can wake up the interior pass rush. Because we haven't seen the Shelby Harris that we saw against the San Francisco 49ers in preseason play. I mean, where's that guy been? I mean, just like the outside rushers haven't gotten there, well, neither has Shelby Harris got a big push up the middle to really force a sack that way. So I would like to see a little bit more interior pressure. I think that's partly why Draymond Jones was active this past week, and they wanted to get him those opportunities, get him those reps. So I think that will help. But I also think, and this is going to seem like a really counterintuitive or whatever you would say point here, but I honestly think that playing against Aaron Rodgers is going to help them do that, because he's way more of the pocket style passer compared to
holds onto the ball longer.
Yeah, he holds it longer. He takes deeper drops. He likes to read the field on a deeper drop, and he likes to play that long passing game. He likes to push the ball downfield deep. Aaron Rodgers is not a guy like Derek Carr who's going to try to do just a quick 3-step drop out from under center and be done with it. He's a guy who wants to take the ball out of the shotgun, scan the field, go through his reads, and I think that plays into the Broncos' hands quite a bit, because Aaron Rodgers is a guy who's going to wait until the very last moment to make a play, and if he's waiting a long time, you give those two pass rushers, Miller and Chubb, a chance to get back there, I think he's going to get hit quite a bit in this game, and I think obviously the Broncos are going to be scheming ways to get to him, but I don't think we're going to see as much quick passing from Aaron Rodgers, because that's just not his game. He likes to pick apart the deep and middle part of the field. So I think it's going to be a huge turnaround for them this week, just in terms of how they approach the QB they're playing.
If it plays out that way, it's certainly going to give us a little bit of a boost that we need to kind of shift the momentum.
Yeah.
Because we need it. We can't go 0-3. Otherwise, it's going to be a really rough season really quick.
Yeah.
And it's not going to depress me, because I really do think that like we've made some huge improvements. But I think that starting with week 1, they created a game plan for how to beat our weaknesses.
Yeah.
And unless you can heal that schematically by doing different things, which I fully trust Fangio to do, we just may not have the personnel to be able to heal that as much as we would like, which means that we're going to have to take what we can out of this year and out of this season if we don't end up going very far, and hopefully getting experience to a lot of our young players and building off that. But I'm looking forward to us being able to hopefully do something to get a little bit of momentum. It feels like we really need to have some big defensive drives early, and we need to put some early points on the board. Yeah, because we need that kind of a game. We need our strengths are going to play out when we've got at least a touchdown lead. So we need to stop them defensively early, and we need to score early, and it's going to set a different tempo that plays to our strengths.
Yes,
that's kind of like, again, I'm no expert, but that seems to me like it's easier said than done, but what I would like to see happen in a scenario that I can visualize us winning against most teams if we're able to do that. But when they can frickin' pound the rock early and pick us apart in this short game and not get in any third and long situations, our defense is not going to be strong in those ways. No. So we really need to catch that early lead, which that's been a struggle offensively as we're moving through the 20s, but then we're just putting up these field goals. Dude, if we're moving through these 20s and we're punching in a couple early touchdowns, it's going to put them into a mode of like, guys, we got to keep up with this.
Right.
And then that is going to be able to unleash more of our frickin' pass rush and our our pretty solid secondary.
Right. 100%. 100% correct. That's what the Broncos absolutely need. And that's going to help them, I think, force more turnovers if they can get into that situation where, all right, we can pin our ears back a little bit. We got a 10-point lead, or even more than that. I mean, this is a team and a style of defense and the personnel that the Broncos have that if they are able to get a 2-score lead at any point, I think you could pretty much chalk that one up as a victory, because their secondary is so good and the pass rushers are so good that if you're having to take deep drops all throughout a game, if you're trying to play dink and dunk down the field and run down the field and run out the clock, you're not going to be able to beat the Broncos if they have a lead, because you're going to take way too much time. And if you have to go into that quick strike attack like that, the defense is just going to eat you alive.
Yeah. So would it be pretty accurate to say that the biggest way we could improve our team in 2019 is scoring in the red zone?
Oh, 100%. 100%.
I mean, that seems obvious. I mean, putting up more points. But, I mean, specifically to be able to control the pace of these games, we're crushing it in the 20s.
Yeah.
27 first downs. I think that's like exactly how many first downs the Patriots got in that 43-0 game.
Yeah, and you're right. What's the difference? Converting in the red zone. And I think that part of that has to do with getting a little bit too cute. I think they would have converted at least 2 touchdowns if it weren't for... I mean, why did they turn away from Royce Freeman when he was absolutely gashing the Bears defense when they got down inside the 5-yard line? Like, that didn't make much sense to me. And then they threw the interception to Emmanuel Sanders. To me, Scangarello's had a couple of moments that just leave you scratching your head a little bit. But at the same time, I think they're doing a lot of the right things offensively. 27 first downs. That's a stat that you can hang your hat on. But you can't, not 30 points in 2 games. Yeah. I mean, that's like 1 quarter for the Kansas City Chiefs right now. So you have to play up to the level of your opponent. You can't play down to it. And I think that the Broncos, based on the fact that they played what I would consider to be 2 of probably the most one-dimensional offenses in the league the first 2 weeks, they've really played down to their opponent offensively. And I think that, again, Joe Flacco has proven he's capable enough to be able to lead this team down the field often.
Agreed. And that's where it's like the 0-2 thing. We talk, you and I talk a lot about, and we've talked on the podcast a lot about how people really oversimplify and they cast this, it's like you're taking the layers of an image and you're flattening the image, and then, they justify a certain kind of narrative. And the 0-2 sucks.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. The 0-2 sucks, but it's a different kind of 0-2 than in the past. Give me this team that we have right now over anything that we've had since 2015.
Exactly. 100%.
Personally. Not only the trajectory of the youth, which I'm just so excited about. I mean, I'm having so much fun playing my Madden franchise right now, and so much of it is the same players we have. I made a couple trades, but it's really just like I get excited about progressing some of these younger guys. Locke coming in, and then our young receivers getting better, Fant getting better, having that Freeman and Lindsey connection for a couple years. You develop all of that youth, but even so, man, the 27 first downs, we can just freaking convert in the red zone and get some early stops to be able to put us up early. Dude, this can be a good team this year.
Yeah. Yep.
Way better than 0-2.
Yeah, way better. Way better than 0-2. I would be shocked if the Broncos don't string together a few wins here, because they're playing on the road in Green Bay, and then the only road game for the next month is in Los Angeles against the Chargers, and we all know that's basically a home game for the Broncos, because that place is filled with orange every single year. So they've got a good shot here to string something together. And it starts with this week in Green Bay. Somebody tweeted out that they've never won in Green Bay, but I'd have to fact check that because I'm not sure if that's the case. But they play so infrequently that it's possible. So if this is the time, I mean, there's no better time. You can't really start 0-3 unless you're getting ready to string off 9 straight wins like Houston did last year, and when they started 0-3. So.
Is that I'm picturing my favorite Bronco Packer game, which was the Cutler versus Favre one.
Yeah.
But they won that one. That's right. They won that one.
They did in overtime.
I remember where I was when I watched that.
I did too.
So that was like one of the last ones I thought about. I was trying to remember if that was in Green Bay, but we lost that one.
That was painful.
Yeah.
Was
So it's got to start with the Packers, man.
Yep.
We got to turn this around. Hopefully, like you said, they hold on to the ball and they play it a little bit differently.
Yeah.
To where they're not going to be able to do the same thing. I just trust Fangio. Again, he may not have the personnel to totally heal the problem, but I also trust him to come up with creative solutions to not get beat the same way he's been beat.
Yes.
I don't see him ever as a coach that's going to allow himself to be beat in the same way.
Right.
So
yeah,
that's encouraging.
Yeah, great adjustment, coach. And obviously the Broncos are getting a little bit healthier. You know, we could see Todd Davis and Bryce Callahan out there this week, which would obviously strengthen. First of all, with Todd Davis, that run defense is going to be pretty stacked. Corey Nelson not quite getting the job done out there right now for me. So Josie Jewell, though, playing really well. I think that's gone underrated. I mean, when you lose games...
I just see Josie close off at the end so many times.
Yeah.
And he's just smashing somebody and just involved in the tackle. Just all that 47 just kind of popping out when I see him on screen. Yeah,
he's made a lot of plays. And I think that's something that really gets lost when you're losing games is like you miss what good is happening. So there was a lot of good... I mean... Elijah Wilkinson, dude, playing some right tackle and just really getting it done out there. I mean, you barely noticed him the entire game, which for an offensive lineman, that's exactly what you want. You don't want to notice him out there. So
yeah, well, and if Jawan James is out for how long?
It could. That is pretty vague at this point. I think it could be a month or 6 weeks or something like that.
Do you think we could see like an offensive line where Garrett Bowles is potentially benched and Elijah and Jawan are playing the right tackle position or the right and left tackle position?
I could see that. I could honestly see it. I mean, because Fangio, when he was asked about that, said, you know, his words were, right now they don't have the depth up there to be able to bench Bowles, and they just pulled that guy up off the practice squad, Jake Rogers, who, in my opinion, looked terrible in the preseason. So, like, they're obviously not going to put him in at left tackle of a regular season game with jobs and playoffs on the line. They may give him a look down the line, but I think when Jawan James comes back, anything is on the table. And if the Broncos start winning a couple games here, I think even potentially trades could be on the table. You know, if Bowles struggles but they're winning games. Like,
I wouldn't be upset about that at all.
Yeah. Do you call the Redskins about Trent Williams? Even though the price could be pretty substantial, I mean, that's a potential huge move.
Yeah. And we kind of blew through it, and we're also kind of at the end of the segment, but we blew through the Jar Jar Bowles thing. But I will add another layer to it. Is just I don't like how he even responded to it. It was like a half apology. It was like a half accountability. And I feel like when you blow it that badly, to where like even Sanders was calling him out.
Yeah.
One of the things Fangio said was like, I think we need to do a better job of communicating that to him, and he needs to do a better job of listening. And Fangio is always pretty candid, and so one of the things, kind of pairing up that part of the comment of he needs to do a better job listening with also him saying, I don't agree with like a lot of the calls. I think there's a time and place for like really defending yourself.
Yeah.
And I feel like he should have fully ate the loss.
Oh yeah.
When it came to his performance, and it seems like he's defending a bruised ego.
He is.
From my perspective of how I'm kind of reading some of his reactions and responses, is I think he's got an ego he's defending that's bruised. He knows that both he's getting it from his teammates, he's getting it from local media. He's probably getting it from his team in the locker room and from his coaches. And so I wonder how much of that he's arguing against when they're trying to correct him for things, and how much he's just I wish he would go in there and just take his strengths and be like, submit to Munchak and just be like, teach me everything I need to know. Mm-hmm. I want to listen to every pointer you have to say. I want to swallow every criticism that you have for me, and I want to get better. And for some reason, I know we don't know enough from being inside these situations, but from just Fangio's comment of saying he needs to do a better job of listening, I don't get the sense that that's what he did, which is go in there and submit to just not fix me, coach. Like that's tough for a grown man to do, but to be in there and be like, make me the best player I can possibly be, and I'm just going to chew all the freaking fruit and spit the seeds and learn as much as I possibly can. I kind of have a feeling that this bruised ego defense that we saw in that post-game interview is probably how he's handling some of the coaching. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it totally does. Totally does, because if you're connecting the dots, it sounds like, from what Emmanuel Sanders said, it sounds like everyone's trying to talk to him. Because there was a point where, and I'll give just a quick personal example for this. There was a point when I was playing like rec league basketball, and I'm super competitive, so kind of a jerk out there on the court. But I was playing competitive like rec league basketball, and I was trying to box guys out before they finished the follow through of their shot, meaning before they return to the ground after a jump shot. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to box them out before they finish shooting. And I'm thinking to myself, in my mind, it makes sense that I would start boxing them out and try to affect their shot. But then I start getting called for fouls for boxing them out too early, and it's a foul in the act of a shot. And I'm saying to these referees, all I'm doing is boxing the guy out. And they're like, yeah, but you can't do it before he hits the ground. And I'm like, well, that's not the rule, whatever. And I kind of get that impression from Garrett Bowles. It's like, he's trying to box the guy out before they finish the shot, and he's like, "Well, that's how I've always done it, and that's how that's how you play. It's a physical game, yada yada yada." And you can kind of connect all these dots from the coaches, and even Elway saying, "There's a quote that just came out from Elway, who said that he's got to understand why penalties are being called on him." I think that's the most important thing. That's the thing we discuss, is for him to understand exactly why. Got to get yourself in better position and play better technique so you don't hold. And who's teaching him technique? I mean, it seems like he's really not taking to coaching, whether it's the guys they had last year or Munchak this year.
That worries me more than his play.
Yeah.
As weird as that sounds, it worries me more in his play, because we do have an O-line coach that we were really hoping would fix him. Well, guess what? The problem's not having the right O-line coach.
Right.
The problem is Garrett Bowles not listening. And when you have one of the team captain, I know we don't have set team captains, but when you have a guy like Emmanuel Sanders going, we're trying to talk to him, what that shows me is you've got a guy that's not receptive to being talked to.
Yes. 100%.
And I don't want that in Broncos country. So somebody that doesn't respond to that kind of correction and isn't willing to listen to his teammates and his coaches about how to be better, we need to replace him because of that, more so than the mistakes he's making, in my opinion. I don't like that attitude.
Right. And I think it's telling that what Emmanuel Sanders said, I just want to read a piece of his quote because it speaks to what you're talking about. He says, "I'm going to keep trying to talk to Bowles and see if we can get him right and understanding." I'm adding emphasis on myself here. We need to see if we can get him right and understanding what he's doing wrong, because obviously to say that he'll be all right is not okay. He needs to understand that he's doing something wrong because they keep throwing the flags on him and he keeps holding. I'm going to talk to him, and hopefully we keep breaking down the film and just see him make that jump and get that debt off his back, because it's been happening for like 2 or 3 years. I mean, if that's not truth be told, man, there's no greater dagger than that. If your teammate's like, dude, it's been happening for 2 or 3 years, like, you need to... Well,
and if he's willing to say that to us, you got to know that they've been trying to fix it within the building, and it's become a frustration.
Yeah. Yep. And there's too many signs pointing
There's no greater critic than frickin' Mark Schlereth, which was really hilarious that he was doing the broadcast, because we all see the snippets online, most of us hardcore Broncos fans, or anybody that listens to his show, or listens to him talk at any length about Garrett Bowles. He's just about the whatever the opposite of a fan is. That's what Mark Schlereth is of Garrett Bowles. So he's over there coloring the broadcast, and it was pretty much pure A+ entertainment commentary from a guy who intimately knows the Garrett Bowles situation and is commentating over the top of his worst game.
Yep.
This late into it. It's his worst. You want to fix the bad games, but then he not only does it seem like he's not been fixed, but he just had his worst one.
Yes.
That's a downward trajectory. So I am looking forward to the day where we replace him.
Yeah, at this point, I'm with you.
Most Broncos country is.
Yep. At this point, I'm 100% with you on that. Because if you can't take the coaching of Mike Munchak and you can't become a better player with him in the building, like, that's on you. That's 100% on you. Because he's molded how many guys into all-pro offensive linemen, especially at the tackle position. I mean, he took Alejandro Villanueva, who was an undrafted guy, and made him into a household name. So... yeah, I think I'm glad we expounded on Bowles a bit because it needed that attention. And I think, like I said on game day or the day after, it's like we want Bowles to do well. Of course we want Bowles to do well. And of course we want Elway to get credit for having a good draft pick. At the same time, we can't anymore. There's no painting it as, okay, well, he's still developing. He's only been playing football since he was this old, yada, yada, yada. No, that's done. Like, this is your third year in the NFL, and there's stuff at stake here. Like, if he lets Khalil Mack by, he might be killing Joe Flacco out there. We might be talking about Joe Flacco going on IR in addition to guys like Roethlisberger and Breeze.
Right.
So I want to see him improve.
You can lead a Bronco to water, but you can't make him drink.
Dude.
And that's kind of what it feels like. They've put the right things around him to help him. And he's not helping himself.
Yeah.
So in that case, what more can we do? We've rooted for him. We've given him chance after chance. At this point, we need him and lack the depth underneath him, or he would certainly be benched. And now mostly all of Broncos country is looking forward to that day where we can figure out a way to replace him and get rid of him for anything.
You're right.
It's sad. It is. But he's not helping himself in this situation.
No, he's not.
So, we got the final elective segment.
Yeah.
We've got the alternate timeline, which I don't think we need to really go too much into because we've kind of talked a lot about the scenarios. But you had mentioned beforehand talking about, just if Von Miller pitch your scenario.
Yeah.
So what timeline do you want to enter into?
I mean, we've seen it too many times throughout the years that at the end of a game when the Broncos need just a game clinching sack, it's Von Miller that comes out on top. He is the heavyweight champion of the world. He's the guy who you want closing games. If you're talking about who's going to take the last shot, who do you want on the field to seal the deal? Who do you want to throw the last pitch? Like, it's Von Miller. He's been that guy. He's the closer. He's the closer. He's one of the best in the NFL that I've ever seen. And we've seen a lot of good ones. And I'm just imagining, even after the Bradley Chubb roughing the passer, on 4th and 15, Von Miller comes around the edge, just dips under that right tackle like he always does, and just with the force of all forces, knocks Mitch Trubisky to the ground, maybe even knocks the ball loose, forcing that turnover to end the game. And the Broncos all of a sudden they're this tough defense that comes up in the clutch. And Joe Flacco was Joe Cool in the fourth quarter. And I can just picture the entire narrative of the way this season is going
coming into this week.
Yeah, it'd be the script would be completely flipped if Von Miller goes out and makes that play. And I'm going to give Von the benefit of the doubt because he's done it so often, and this was a rare situation where, like you said, I mean, it felt like the Bears just, from a story perspective, they shouldn't have gone out and kicked that field goal. And I think that Von Miller is the guy who missed the opportunity there. I mean, I know there's so many other guys that we could look at, but it's Von.
Well, and talk about a difference between Bowles and Von. Von swallowed the L.
Yeah.
Von afterward was like, I make a play there, and we change that game, and it's a double loss for me. I love that kind of leadership. I love that he was willing to swallow it, and it wasn't. We can give him the benefit of the doubt. And it wasn't totally his fault, and a lot of other things needed to happen. But I like that he's willing to do that.
Yep.
That's what you want to see Bulls having, is that kind of thing. Like, do you guys, I screwed up. You know how the quotes on Twitter for the Bulls video were like, Broncos country, I'm gonna do better.
Yeah.
But then like you pop open the video and he's making all these excuses and how he disagrees with the calls. It's just like, well, it's like that should have been included in the title of when people were posting the video, because that to me spoke louder than his, like, I don't want to call it a half-hearted apology, because I feel like he does want to improve, but you can see from how he reacted that he wasn't going to improve in the way that he really needs to. But yeah, as far as the alternate timeline goes, whether it's the Vaughn fourth and, whatever sack, or the Bradley Chubb, penalty not happening, or they don't screw us on the time clock, any of those things, and we enter into an alternate timeline.
Yep.
It seemed like there was a string of things like that all happened at the end, that if any of those go a different way, most 30 games where you got to close out for 30 seconds, especially having a secondary and a pass rush like we have, we close that game out and we go into this next week as favorites. Mm-hmm. Because look at what the Packers did to the Bears versus how much points that we put up against the Bears, and yeah, we allowed more points than the Packers allowed. I think we go into this Packers game looking like favorites and being a middle of the pack NFL team, rather than I saw this power rankings video today where they had us at 27.
Wow.
And at this point, you can't really argue against the results.
No.
That would put us at 27. I'm glad they still put us over, 4 or 5 teams, that also were 0-2. But so they see a little something in us, but at the same time, it just would have totally changed the narrative. Now, I like that we are playing from behind for the sake of going into the Packers game, that we are underdogs, because I feel like we play really well when we're underdogs. But I think the narrative very much changes when we come through in the clutch, especially with Flacco. Like, my buddies text me today, they're like, Joe Flacco, more like Joe Flacco and 2. And I'm like, I didn't even respond.
Dang.
Like, close the text.
It's just cold.
But but it's true. It's like, we can say the 27 first downs and the Flacco's look pretty good, but the outside narrative, which is what we're talking about, how people perceive the Broncos, would have shifted, and we'd be watching highlights all week of the frickin' touchdown at the end, the 2-point conversion, and how Fangio called the back and forth prior to that, prior to that 2-point conversion. It just would have been, it ends, the note that the story leaves off on ends completely different than the shock and the bewilderment that even you and I, we've barely talked about the game since it ended, because we both were just kind of still befuddled and confounded at like, what the heck just happened? Yeah. Which is, I feel like how it taps into the pulse of how a lot of Bronco country felt. But yeah, I think the narrative shifts for how people are looking at us, for how things are going forward. And now it's going to be on us going in 0-2 into the Packers just to go beat them down to really change the narrative. And so we really got to take control of our story in this next game. Yeah, absolutely do. Absolutely do. And they have an opportunity, man. It's still early in the season. Like, let's not just, you can't go in there defeated. You got to move on to the next game. You got to move on to Aaron Rodgers. You got to find ways to impose your will. And thankfully for the Broncos, they're still mostly healthy. Well, there's a couple injuries still, but this team is mostly healthy at key spots. And so let's go in there and let's do something. Let's do something great, and let's light it up. Let's score some red zone. Let's frickin' sack Rodgers. Let's get something of an early lead so we can play to our strengths. Let's freaking do it, dude. I'm excited about this game. I feel like, especially when you telling me that about, how you're hopeful that Rodgers isn't going to play that way. I think we got a momentum shifter in front of us. Yep. He's a totally different style of quarterback than they faced. So it does play a little bit more into their favor. And I think that we're going to see I think we're going to see his gunslinger mentality result in at least one turnover. I think we'll start to see the sacks pile up. I don't know that the Broncos are going to be able to really just impose their will, but I do think that they match up well with this Green Bay defense. So
It's gonna be fun to see, man.
All right. I'm right here live on my iPad. I've got my my fantasy pulled up for this week, and I have the Browns D currently in. They're projected for 6.1 against the Rams, but my Broncos D is projected for a 0.1 point less with only 6 against Green Bay. And I'm going right now. Whoop, just switched them. Broncos are in, baby.
Let's go.
Broncos D is in the lineup.
Let's go.
I believe Broncos country, and you should too. Good things are on the horizon. We're going to beat the pack. Coming to a theater near you. Get excited. The future is bright. Let's not fall into a cynical black hole about everything. We've got a good freaking team. We got some holes. We got some issues. But you know what? Let's be those guys that are like, I believed when we were down. And so when they come back and when they prove what they really got, that they're not an 0-2 team, they actually have a lot more, that we're a team with hidden depths. It's what you want in your good storybook characters. You want hidden depths, and you want those depths to emerge out of conflict. And you know what? I think that's the story that's being told right now.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be. I can't wait to see it happen. So, this has been fun, dude. It's been fun. It's been
a good episode, especially coming off a second victory in a row. I think we're having a good time. I think there's some positives to glean, and there's things to look forward to. And I'm happy to be on the podcast with you, talking Broncos, win, lose, or tie, baby.
Broncos till we die.
Well, we thank you all for also joining us. We hope you had a good time. I mean, we had a good time. But we most importantly hope that you had a good time hanging out with us, chilling, talking Broncos, doing some Star Wars awards. We're posting these on Twitter and Instagram, and we got our YouTube episodes that are going up with my Darth Von, Lord Miller art over the top of it. So join in on the conversation, listen where you can, listen where you want, and let us know when we post a Twitter award. And we divvy out, a Mandalorian award to the refs or a Jar Jar Binks award to Bulls. That's something we can all get behind and agree with. Yeah. But tell us your picks, Tell us what you think. Maybe we need to get like a little graphic out there that says what the awards are. And then each week you guys can give out your Star Wars awards for what you thought the Broncos should have got.
I like it.
So thanks again. We appreciate you all hanging out with us. Subscribe, share, engage, and join us next week as we talk about the post-game recap of the Broncos' victory over the Packers. This has been Sayre Bedinger and Brandon Keckler on the Knights of Den podcast. Thanks again. We'll see you next time. And as always, God bless and go Broncos.